Look up on any clear night, and there it is, our constant companion, the moon. Sometimes a slender silver smile hanging low in the twilight, sometimes a brilliant coin of light, so bright it casts shadows across the midnight snow, and sometimes invisible entirely, hidden in the sun's glare, waiting to be born again. Why? Why does this silent wanderer change its face from night to night, presenting us with an ever-shifting portrait painted in reflected sunlight? For thousands of years, our ancestors watched this celestial metamorphosis and wove stories to explain it. Gods consuming the moon, dragons devouring it bite by bite, magic and mystery written across the sky. But the truth, the real truth, is somehow more beautiful than any myth. It is not magic. It is not a trick of the gods. It is one of the most elegant dances in the entire solar system. A dance of light and shadow, of geometry and grace, that has captivated humanity since we first looked up and wondered. Tonight, we will journey together through the lunar cycle, from the invisible new moon to the majestic full moon and back again. We will discover the simple, profound geometry that makes it all possible, and perhaps in understanding this ancient rhythm, we will feel ourselves more connected to the cosmos that made us. The moon's journey takes 29.5 days. Let us follow it together. To understand this dance, we must first step back and see the players on the cosmic stage. The moon does not shine with its own light. This is perhaps the first and most important thing to understand. It is a cold, rocky world, airless, lifeless, ancient beyond reckoning, that borrows its glow from our sun. Every photon of moonlight that has ever touched your face began its journey as sunlight, traveled 150 million kilometers to the moon, bounced off that grey regolith, and then traveled another 384,000 kilometers to reach your eyes. You are seeing the sun's light, twice traveled, filtered through 150 million kilometers of space and time. Picture the setup. Our sun, a medium-sized star, burning with the fury of 4 million tons of matter converted to energy every second. Earth, our blue-green oasis, suspended in the black, and the moon, our natural satellite, orbiting Earth in an elegant ellipse, taking about 27.3 days to complete one orbit. But here's something curious. The cycle we actually see, from new moon to new moon, takes slightly longer. Not 27.3 days, but 29.5 days. Why? Because Earth itself is moving around the sun. During the time it takes the moon to orbit Earth once, our planet has moved along its own orbit, so the moon must travel a bit further to get back to the same position relative to the sun. This 29.5-day period is what we call the synodic month, the month of the phases. Imagine the moon as a giant mirror in space, a sphere perpetually bathed in sunlight on one side and cloaked in darkness on the other. From anywhere in space, you would always see half the moon illuminated and half in shadow. Always. That never changes. But we are not floating freely in space. We are standing on Earth, watching from one particular vantage point as the moon circles us. And from our perspective, the portion of that sunlit half that we can see changes night by night, creating the phases, the waxing and waning, the crescents and quarters, and the glorious full moon. In the vastness of space, this tiny rock and our tiny planet perform a ballet so precise, so regular, that ancient civilizations could predict its every move. The Babylonians knew the cycles. The Maya tracked them with astonishing accuracy. Stonehenge may have been, in part, a moon computer carved in stone. They watched, they learned, they understood that the heavens were not chaos, but cosmos, ordered, predictable, knowable. And now, let us follow the moon through its 8 classic phases, one by one. Let us watch the dance unfold. The cycle begins in darkness. The new moon. At this moment, the moon is positioned between Earth and Sun, almost perfectly aligned. The sunlight illuminates the moon's far side, the hemisphere we can never see from Earth, while the near side, the side facing us, lies in shadow. From our perspective, the moon is invisible, lost in the sun's glare. This is the moment of reset, the cosmic 0 point. It is also the only time when, if the alignment is perfect, if the geometry is precise to within fractions of a degree, the moon can pass directly in front of the sun, creating a solar eclipse. For a few precious minutes, day becomes night, and the sun's corona blazes around the black disk of our satellite. Ancient peoples fell to their knees. Even now, knowing the science, we feel the same primal awe. But most months, the moon passes slightly above or below the sun's disk, and we simply see nothing. The moon is there, but hidden, waiting. 1 or 2 days later, just after sunset, look west. There it is, a delicate silver smile, a crescent so thin it seems almost fragile, hanging in the deepening twilight. The moon has moved in its orbit, and now we can see a sliver of that sunlit hemisphere. The word waxing means growing, increasing, becoming more. This crescent has a strange beauty to it. The lit portion glows brilliantly, but if you look carefully in darker skies, you can sometimes see the rest of the moon too, dimly illuminated by Earthshine, sunlight that has bounced off Earth onto the moon and back to us. We are seeing the moon lit by the reflection of a reflection. Light upon light upon light. Ancient sailors used this crescent as a celestial clock, knowing that the moon's phases would repeat with the regularity of a cosmic metronome. By observing the crescent's position and thickness, they could reckon time and tide. About a week into the cycle, we reach the first quarter. And here's a delightful confusion. It looks like a half moon, but we call it a quarter. Why? Because the moon has completed 1/4, 25%, of its orbit around Earth. We are seeing half of the moon's near side illuminated, but the moon itself is at the quarter point of its journey. The geometry is beautiful in its simplicity. Draw a line from the sun to Earth and another line from Earth to the moon. At first quarter, those lines form a right angle, 90 degrees. The moon is to our east, perpendicular to the Sun-Earth line, which is why we see precisely half of the illuminated hemisphere. This is the phase when the moon is highest in the sky at sunset, hanging overhead as the sun disappears below the opposite horizon. One celestial body setting, another reaching its peak, the sky itself in balance. Gibbous is a wonderful word. It means humpbacked, bulging, swollen with light. Between first quarter and full moon, we enter the waxing gibbous phase. Each night, the terminator, that stark line between light and shadow on the moon's surface, creeps westward across the lunar landscape, swallowing craters and maria in brightness. More and more of the sunlit side becomes visible to us. This is the phase when you might look up in the afternoon and see the moon hanging pale and ghostly in the blue sky. The full moon rises as the sun sets, but the gibbous moon rises earlier, sometimes in mid-afternoon, reminding us that the moon doesn't vanish during daylight. It's often there, sharing the sky with the sun, if only we remember to look. The grand finale of the waxing half, the full moon. Now the geometry has reversed from the new moon. Earth is between the sun and moon, and we see the entire sunlit hemisphere facing us in all its glory. It rises in the east, just as the sun sets in the west, hanging opposite our star in the sky, bathing the world in borrowed light throughout the night. This is the moon of poetry and song. The harvest moon, when farmers could work late into autumn evenings by its light. The hunter's moon that followed, the wolf moon of January, when wolves howled in the frozen darkness. Every culture has named these full moons, weaving them into the fabric of human timekeeping. A supermoon occurs when the full moon coincides with perigee, the moon's closest approach to Earth in its elliptical orbit. It appears 14% larger and 30% brighter than at its farthest point. The difference is subtle to the eye, but the mythology it inspires is anything but subtle. For one brief night, the moon bathes the world in borrowed sunlight, strong enough to read by, strong enough to cast shadows, strong enough to remind us that even in darkness, light finds a way. But the cycle does not end here. What has waxed must now wane. The moon begins its journey back toward darkness. In the nights following the full moon, we enter the waning gibbous phase. The word waning means diminishing, shrinking, fading. The moon now rises later each night, not at sunset, but an hour or two afterward, and then later still. For those of us who sleep under dark skies, this is when we truly notice the moon's journey. Its rising time, shifting progressively deeper into the night. The shadow grows. The terminator advances. Day by day, the darkness reclaims lunar territory. 2 weeks after first quarter, we reach last quarter, also called third quarter. Again, a perfect half-illuminated disk, but now the left side glows while the right side lies in darkness. The geometry has reversed. The moon has traveled 3/4 of its orbit, and once again forms a right angle with the Sun-Earth line, but this time the moon is to our west. This moon rises around midnight and remains visible into the morning, hanging in the southern sky as dawn approaches. It's the moon of the late-night shift workers and early morning commuters, the moon that keeps watch over the world's transition from night to day. The final phase, a delicate crescent again, but now on the left, a backward smile as it were. This moon rises in the hours before dawn, hanging in the eastern sky just before sunrise. You must wake early to see it, stepping out into the pre-dawn darkness to catch a glimpse of this silver sliver before the sun's light overwhelms it. And then, inexorably, the moon moves back between Earth and Sun. The crescent thins to a thread, then to nothing. Darkness returns. The cycle completes, and immediately begins again. For 4.5 billion years, this pattern has repeated. Month after month, year after year, eon after eon, before there were eyes to see it, before there was life to wonder at it. The cosmic dance continued, patient and eternal. But there are deeper mysteries here, subtler wonders woven into this lunar ballet. Why, you might ask, do we always see the same face of the moon? Why does the moon never show us its far side, the hemisphere that remained hidden from human eyes until Soviet spacecraft photographed it in 1959? The answer is tidal locking. Over billions of years, Earth's gravity has acted on the moon like an invisible hand, creating tiny bulges in the lunar rock itself. These bulges created friction, slowing the moon's rotation until its spin became synchronized with its orbit. Now the moon rotates exactly once for every orbit it makes around Earth, keeping the same hemisphere perpetually facing us. It is a gravitational embrace, a cosmic synchronization achieved through deep time and patient forces we cannot see, but can only calculate and understand. And the moon, in turn, reaches back across space with its own gravity, raising twin bulges in Earth's oceans, one facing the moon, pulled toward it, and one on the opposite side, where the Earth itself is pulled away from the water. These bulges, rotating with Earth as our planet spins, create the twice-daily rhythm of the tides. High tide, low tide, high tide, low tide. The breathing of the seas, controlled by our satellite 384,000 kilometers away. The ancient Greeks knew the tides followed the moon. Coastal peoples across the world planned their fishing, their commerce, their very lives around these rhythms. But it took Newton's law of universal gravitation to explain why. Gravity, that invisible thread that binds the cosmos together, connects the moon to Earth's oceans in ways both profound and practical. And then there are the eclipses, when the alignment is perfect, when the new moon passes precisely through Earth's shadow, or when the full moon allows the moon to pass through Earth's shadow. We are treated to the rare and spectacular. A solar eclipse, when day becomes night and the sun's corona blazes. A lunar eclipse, when Earth's shadow falls across the moon, turning it blood red from sunlight filtered through our atmosphere. These are the moments when the cosmic machinery becomes visible, when the elegant dance of sun, earth, and moon align so perfectly that we cannot help but feel we are witnessing something sacred. For 4.5 billion years, the moon has been our silent witness. It watched the Earth cool from a molten sphere to a world of stone and water. It watched the first storms rage across the first oceans. It watched single-celled organisms bloom in those oceans. Watched them evolve into fish and amphibians and reptiles and mammals. It watched our primate ancestors descend from the trees and walk upright across the African savanna. It watched us discover fire, invent language, build cities, create civilizations, and on July 20th, 1969, it watched us arrive, fragile beings in spacesuits, planting a flag in its ancient dust, fulfilling a dream as old as dreaming itself. In the moon's changing face, we see the turning of time itself. The steady, predictable rhythm of the phases has served as humanity's first clock, our first calendar. Cultures around the world have organized their lives around the lunar cycle. The word month itself comes from moon. When you look at the moon tonight, you are participating in an act as old as consciousness, the act of observing, of wondering, of seeking to understand the patterns in the sky. You are connected to every human who has ever lived, for all of them, like you, looked up and saw the moon. So I ask you, go outside tonight, find a window, step into the darkness, look up, find the moon in whatever phase it happens to be showing you, a crescent, a quarter, gibbous or full. Really see it. Notice its position against the stars. Observe its color, its brightness. Notice which side is illuminated. And remember, you are not just seeing reflected sunlight on a distant rock. You are witnessing one moment in an eternal dance. You are seeing the clockwork of the cosmos, the elegant geometry of light and shadow that governs not just our moon, but every moon around every planet, in every solar system in the observable universe. You are part of this. You are made of atoms forged in dying stars, standing on a planet warmed by a star, watching a moon reflect that star's light. In this moment, the universe is knowing itself through you. If this journey through the lunar cycle moved you, I hope you'll subscribe to This Week in the Sky. We'll continue exploring our astonishing cosmos together, from planetary alignments to meteor showers to the deepest mysteries of space and time. And please, drop a comment below. What phase of the moon is your favorite, and why? Do you have a moon memory? A moment when our satellite touched your life in some special way? The moon will be there tonight. It will be there tomorrow night. And it will be there long, long after we are gone, continuing its patient orbit. Clear skies, fellow travelers.